We gotta talk about how marketing set this book up to fail. This is The Favorites by Lane Fargo, and I picked it up for my sports romance review series where we talk about whether or not the book would teach you about the sport, how accurate it is to the sport, and whether love would be possible without that sport. We've covered so many different sports, including Formula One, football, and hockey, and I was super excited to cover this one because it was ice dance. We are less than a year away from the next Winter Olympics. I was a huge Tessa Virtue and Scott Moore fan, and most figure skating romances usually are pairs skating, and frequently it's things like the cutting edge or spinning out, situations where a figure skater needs a partner at the last minute and someone has to battle their own demons to kind of step up and be that partner. And not only was this a little bit of a different setup, it was being billed as Daisy Jones and the Six meets Ice Dance, which to me really sparks things like format and multiple perspectives, unreliable narrators, and how themes of love and toxicity can affect your art. But most importantly, Daisy Jones and the Six made such a splash because of the format. The Favorites also does involve scandal and a documentary. However, the book mostly comes from Katarina Shaw, the female main character's perspective, and from time to time there are pages that break up her narrative that are the transcript of an unauthorized documentary being made. And I think going into it with this expectation that it's being compared to something that was a really big deal and made a really big impact on literature overall, it sets the reader up to be disappointed in this book, because it really doesn't deliver on that comparison. This book is very much from Katarina Shaw's perspective, and the perspectives that would be particularly interesting to hear from are never given their chance to speak, neither in the documentary or from their own perspective or even really in conversations with Katarina. And I think it's possible that if that hadn't been so much of the marketing, if that hadn't been so much of what you were hoping for, this book could have been received very differently. One of the most interesting things in terms of the sports romance to me was the fact that this book kind of explores the idea of whether or not when you want to be an Olympic athlete, when you are so hungry for a gold medal to do something that so few people ever accomplish, whether you can also still have meaningful and deep relationships, or if that desire to win is always going to kind of tangle you into something that doesn't work out. I think that and Kat's drive is the most believable and relevant to the sport and the world and the most interesting theme to me. And I will say that at the beginning, there's a little bit of sabotage that makes sense and feels believable as well. But without spoiling, I will say that the third act of this book devolves into something that feels like a true crime documentary. And for me, that really pulled away from the actually well done parts of this book. When it comes to sports romance, I'm really interested in seeing more characters that have a cutthroat energy, that explore this idea of what it takes mentally to be a champion. And I think if it had stayed a little bit more grounded in the realm of reality, the book overall would have been better for it. However, as I said, I do think there are parts of this book that work really well. And if you'd like to see my full review that goes a little bit more in depth than this, you can find that here. The next book in this sports romance review series will be Cross the Line by Simone Soltani, which is a Formula One romance, which we will be reading to celebrate the start of the season. So if you'd like to read that one prior to the review, make sure you get started now.